Hey there, and welcome to Finance for People. I'm Jay, and this is the podcast where we dive into the world of money, Bitcoin, blockchain, stocks, and everything in between. Whether you're curious about crypto, navigating the stock market, or just trying to make smarter financial moves, this is the place for real talk and fresh ideas. Each week, we bring you expert insights, stories, and tips to help you stay ahead in this ever-changing world of finance. Ready to get started? Let's dive in. Robert, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. Can you start by telling us a little about your journey with Bitcoin and how you became so passionate about blockchain technology?
Thanks for having me. My journey with Bitcoin began in 2012. I was a tech enthusiast, always curious about emerging technologies. One day, a friend introduced me to Bitcoin, and I was hooked. It was like a light bulb went off. I saw Bitcoin not just as a currency, but as a revolutionary technology that could reshape how we think about finance, privacy, and even trust in systems. I dove deep into learning about blockchain and started consulting for projects in the space. Over time, I became more and more passionate about how Bitcoin empowers individuals around the world to take control of their financial futures.
For our listeners who are new to Bitcoin, could you explain what it is in the simplest terms?
Of course, think of Bitcoin like digital gold. It's a decentralized currency that doesn't rely on a central authority, like a bank or government, to validate transactions. Instead, Bitcoin uses blockchain technology, essentially a public ledger that records every transaction made with Bitcoin. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it's not controlled by anyone, which means it's accessible to anyone with an internet connection, regardless of where they are in the world.
In your opinion, how do you think Bitcoin is changing the global financial system?
Bitcoin is challenging the very foundation of traditional finance. One key area is remittances. People in countries with unstable currencies or limited access to banking systems can use Bitcoin to send money across borders instantly and cheaply. I've seen this firsthand. There are communities in Africa and Latin America that are skipping traditional banking and going straight to crypto. And that's just one example. As more people begin to see Bitcoin as a store of value, much like gold, it'll continue to shift the way we think about money.
Bitcoin has faced its share of criticism and challenges. What do you think are the biggest obstacles it needs to overcome?
That's a great question. One of the biggest challenges is education. There's still a lot of misunderstanding and fear around Bitcoin, especially in mainstream media. Then there's regulation. Governments around the world are trying to figure out how to manage Bitcoin without stifling innovation. Finally, scalability is another issue. While the Lightning Network has made transactions faster and cheaper, there's still work to be done to ensure Bitcoin can handle mass adoption without compromising its core principles.
What do you see as Bitcoin's potential in the next 5 to 10 years?
Bitcoin is still in its early stages, and its future is incredibly exciting. I truly believe we're going to see more countries adopt it as legal tender, just like El Salvador has done. As institutions like banks, hedge funds, and even governments start to integrate Bitcoin, its value will only continue to rise. The future will likely see Bitcoin become a global reserve currency, and blockchain technology will disrupt everything from supply chains to voting systems. We're just scratching the surface right now.
I know you've had some personal experiences that shaped your views on Bitcoin. Can you share one of those with us?
Absolutely. One story that stands out happened in 2014 when I was consulting for a startup in the crypto space. At the time, Bitcoin was seen as something very niche and experimental. We faced a lot of skepticism, but then a small group of investors in East Africa approached us. They were using Bitcoin to solve problems related to inflation and hyperinflation in their countries. I'll never forget the moment when one of them told me, "Bitcoin saved my family." It hit me that this wasn't just about tech, it was about changing lives. That moment changed my perspective forever, and I've been all in ever since.
What trends are you seeing in terms of Bitcoin adoption globally, especially in developing countries?
I'm seeing incredible innovation in developing countries. For example, in Nigeria and Kenya, people are using Bitcoin for peer-to-peer transactions because their local currencies are devaluing. In Latin America, remittance services powered by Bitcoin are changing the game by cutting out middlemen like banks. These regions are showing the world that Bitcoin isn't just for tech enthusiasts. It's a lifeline for real-world problems.
What's the biggest misconception you've encountered about Bitcoin, and how do you address it?
The biggest misconception is that Bitcoin is just a speculative asset or a tool for criminals. The truth is, while it's volatile, Bitcoin is much more than a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a technology with the power to democratize finance. As for the criminal use argument, studies show that the vast majority of Bitcoin transactions are legitimate. Education is key to debunking these myths and showing people the real potential of this technology.
On a personal level, what does Bitcoin mean to you?
To me, Bitcoin represents freedom. It's the freedom to transact without barriers, the freedom to protect your wealth from inflation, and the freedom to be part of a decentralized system that values transparency and equality. It's a symbol of hope for a fairer financial future, one where everyone has a seat at the table, regardless of where they're from or their socioeconomic status.
Lastly, what advice would you give to someone just starting to learn about Bitcoin?
Start small and be patient. Bitcoin can seem overwhelming at first, but the key is to take your time and learn at your own pace. A good starting point is understanding the basic principles of decentralization, peer-to-peer networks, and how blockchain works. There's so much great content out there, from books to podcasts to online courses. And remember, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a long-term investment in a new financial ecosystem. Don't put in more than you're willing to lose, but do stay curious. It's an exciting time to be in this space.
Robert, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible insights. I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about, from understanding the basics of Bitcoin to envisioning its future impact on the world.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to chat.
To our listeners, I hope this conversation has inspired you to explore Bitcoin with a fresh perspective. Whether you're just starting out or already diving deep, remember that this is a journey, not a race. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring conversations like this. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.